Well, hello, everyone. Happy middle of the day to everybody. I hope that you really aren't watching this webinar and you might be outside enjoying the beautiful Texas sunshine. Man, if I could jump out my window and land on the roof down there, I'd be out there enjoying a beautiful sunny afternoon as well. But for those of you that are joining us, thank you for tuning in to the Grad Dean here in the Jindal School. We always want to give students an opportunity to chat with us once a month and ask us questions and engage with us and whomever might be joining me on this webinar today. And today, I'm pleased to have Angela Howard join us. She's the Assistant Director for Advising downstairs, and so I'm excited about that. For those of you who don't know me, I am Monica Powell. I'm the Senior Associate Dean and Grad Dean here, and we're going to have a great discussion. So, Angela, how are things down in advising today?
Busy as usual, but that's how we like it. Thank you, Dr. Powell.
You know, extremely busy now that registration has started. Angela, want to talk a little bit about
Yes.
registration?
Yes. So we are in the midst of registering students for the summer and the fall semesters. So if you have any issues with that, please do contact us. You all should be able to at least register yourselves in Orion. But if you find there are any weird things that happen, definitely email us at jsomgradvising@utdallas.edu so that we can assist you. But it seems to be going okay.
Well, that's good. You know, usually if it's not, I generally hear about it from
Yes.
students, but it has been really quiet. So registration must be going really well. I would encourage all of our students, you know, not to delay in getting registered for classes. I know, I mean, we're sitting here on the 19th of April. We realize finals are sneaking up on everybody. I got a good laugh this morning when I was checking my calendar and I'd been invited to a meeting this afternoon to work on a project with a group of students. And I'm like, I don't know what that project is about. It was an accidental invitation to another person named Monica, but it did ring the bell that, yeah, there are a lot of projects that are coming due.
Mm.
A lot of papers that are coming due, presentations that are coming due, and of course, finals are just right on the heels of everything. But don't be remiss in going ahead and getting yourself registered, because then
Correct.
you'll be frustrated if maybe the particular section you wanted is no longer available. So do that. Angela, can you talk a minute about explaining to students when their tuition is due if they go ahead and register for fall?
So for fall, if they go to look on the academic calendar, we have all the dates available. But if you're registering now for fall, your first tuition payment will be due July 28th. That is what they call the early registration period. Now, after that date, you will be able to pay again by August 19th. That's the next date, the next deadline. But if you're registering now, you're doing the early registration period. July 28th is the first deadline. Now, if you
So
have questions about that, definitely contact the bursar because they can help you with deadlines and if you need any extensions.
yeah, so Angela, that means that there's no reason that they should delay
Correct.
registering for classes. And I think that sometimes continuing students do that. And then they get really mad at themselves first, us second, when the classes that they want to take are already full. And since you don't have to pay tuition for a long time, there's just no reason. So when you need to take a break between preparing for exam one and exam two,
Mm-hmm.
pop in there and look for your appointment notification and go ahead and get yourself registered for fall classes. And you know, Angela, that brings me to another important topic that I want to remind students about. And I'm going to do more than just remind students about it in this particular chat with the graduate dean, because we will be sending out an email next week to remind students again, and probably several times before the semester is over, that there was a modification to the grading policies for last fall and this spring that gave students the ability to choose 3 classes that they may want to get a pass grade in, as opposed to earning the letter grade from that class. Now, and I'm
Mm.
going to remind you, you have until May the 20th to make those decisions. And in the email that I'm going to send next week, I'm going to send you a link to several webinars that we did back early in the semester to really give students a heads up on how you think about that particular option. Just because you're given 3 opportunities to change something to pass does not necessarily, it doesn't mean that you have to use any of them or that you should use any of them. I know we've had several students who have chosen pass already for a class they took last fall where they made an A minus. And I just cringe when I see that, because clearly a student, when they're making that choice, they're saying, okay, I think it's more important to protect my 4.0 than it is to get an A minus and bring your GPA down just a tad. An A minus says a whole lot more to an employer than a P does. So I would strongly discourage students from doing that. It's totally your choice, but I just think there's a whole lot more value in an A minus. To give up an A minus or a B plus for a pass is something that's kind of baffling to me. But you're going to get that email several times between now and probably May the 5th, at least twice you'll get it. And in it will be some important handouts, a copy of a deck that we used, and links to those webinars that we held earlier in the semester to make sure that you understood the implications for making that decision, the deadlines for what it meant to make that decisions, tons and tons of questions and answers relative to using that pass fail. So I did want to remind students about that. There's another big reminder, although I'm doubting that there is a lot of students who are graduating who are on this call, because you're not registering for any more classes and you're kind of, oh my gosh, I'm done. I get to go be emancipated and, not be in graduate school anymore. But just as a reminder, students are going to have an opportunity for a live graduation that will be held the week of August the 9th. Sometime during that week, we will host a number of graduation ceremonies, and students who graduated in May of 20, August of 20, December of 20, and spring of 2021 will be eligible to go through that graduation. All of those students should have already received an invitation for that graduation, and it's a pretty short window. If I remember correctly, students had, I think, until May the 24th to let the university know if they plan to attend. And the reason for that is there are close to 13,000 students who've graduated since May of 20. So we've invited all of those. So we need to have an idea of who's coming so that we know how many celebrations to have. So if you are one of those, or you have a good friend that's one of those, please remind them of that as well. I think the other thing that I just want to remind students about is that, if you don't pay any attention to the economy, and I'm sure you do, but if you aren't and haven't been, companies are just growing and blowing with regard to increasing the need that they have for internships. So if you are struggling with looking for an internship, get out there and look. Get out there and apply like crazy, because many more internships are being added to Handshake, and we don't want you guys to miss those opportunities, and it is not too late. I think that students tend to compartmentalize tasks. Oh, I'm going to study for finals right now, and when I'm done with finals, then I'll worry about the next task, which is looking for an internship. You got to learn to multitask, folks. You got to learn to study really hard, and then take a break and, apply for some internships, take a break, do a little bit of networking, take a break and study some more for another class, but try to give yourself some variety, because too much studying can make a mind dull or exhausted, or the other. So I think that those were some of the things on my hit list that I really wanted to cover. But Angela, speaking to students and the types of questions that advising is getting at this particular point, what do you think are some of the most popular questions? And by the way, you guys, put all kinds of questions inside of chat, because Norma, who is producing the video, will be glad to ask us any of those questions from chat. But Angela, where are a lot of the questions coming from for our current students? And we could have some prospective students that may have even joined us today.
Yes. a lot of the times when it comes to registration, the big question is, why can I not register? And that usually comes from prerequisites. So I would say if you're not sure what the prerequisites for a class or the co-requisite, please be sure to check that first. They have changed because we're going into a new catalog for fall 2021. So summer's prerequisites for a particular class may be different than fall's prerequisites.
Mhm.
So I would say first check that. We don't have the catalog in hand yet, but those will be what we're going to be following for fall 21 and beyond. So that's the number one thing that we've hit. And that's a normal spring issue because of the change in catalogs. The other would be earlier it was, when can I register? But I believe that now all of the continuing students now have the ability to register. It's essentially open enrollment for you all. So you can now just go in, and if you cannot, please do contact us. If there's something that's going on in your account because of your enrollment date, maybe it didn't populate correctly, let us know, because then we can at least get to the registrar to get them that straightened out. So those are the two main things during registration that have occurred. Maybe internship too, but you already kind of touched on that one. But
Yeah,
a
and
lot of internship questions.
remember, in internships, they must be pre-approved by your program director. You must submit those internships through Handshake, through that portal. They must go through the approval process. If you are an international student, then you have special constraints with regard to getting those internships approved as well. And I am betting that this has resulted in some questions.
So we do have a question submitted. This person asks, what should students do to be as successful as possible beyond simply striving for the best possible grades? And does your answer change for students who are studying full-time versus students who are trying to balance a full-time career? Which I think is a great question.
Wow, that is like an amazing question. So thank you to whomever out there asked that question. Um, at the beginning of your graduate journey, you likely heard from me. And, I talk to students pretty directly about what they can expect in a graduate degree experience, what the characteristics are for a very successful graduate student. And I do talk a little bit about the differences between that student who's going full-time versus that student who's going part-time. So I always believe, and I have 34 years of graduate management education for which to fall back on to be able to say this. But, students get caught up in this notion that they have to be perfect. Unfortunately, I think technology has given students this false notion that they can manage this perfect persona in social media. And so therefore that leaks all over a perfect persona as a student and a perfect persona as a friend and a spouse and a mate and all that kind of stuff. But there is nothing about perfection that is realistic. And when you're going through graduate school, whether you're a full-time or a part-time student, it's about getting everything that you paid for. And that includes actively engaging in your classes, actively being responsible for your learning journey, actively exploring as a graduate student, what do I want to do when I graduate? What kind of job do I want to have? What kind of skills does that job require? And therefore, which track or concentration in my degree program should I go to? And more often than not, I see that students will call up advising, or they'll call up their program director and say, well, what track should I go into? Well, the onus is on the student to figure out and to study position descriptions, read about their industry, figure out, do they like this aspect or this aspect or this aspect, read job descriptions and say, wow, I think I'd really like to do this, or I'd really like to do that. That helps you pick the kinds of courses that you might take. That also tells you what kind of student organizations should you get involved in. And you might sit back and say, well, I'm a part-time student. I've got little kids. I'm working full time. I'm taking 2 classes. Why does it make any sense for me to get involved in a student organization? It makes a lot of sense, because oftentimes these student organizations are hosting these amazing competitions that are judged by employers. And while I'm sure you love your current employer, isn't getting a graduate degree all about advancing you to the next position and maybe the next potential employer? So that means that just getting the knowledge that you're getting from your instructors isn't enough. You need to be engaging in all of these opportunities to network with alumni, opportunities to network with your own classmates. When you're sitting in class, full-time students, there's a whole bunch of people in that class that are probably employed and very likely employed at a company that you want to work for. So the more that you put into things beyond just the textbook and the deliverables and the exams and the projects, the more you're going to get out of a graduate degree experience, whether you're full-time or part-time. The other thing that I tell students all the time, and I know that all of you know this, you made a boatload of friends when you were an undergrad. You all lived in the dorm together. You all learned those life lessons together. You made all those mistakes together. You found out what you were made of together. And so you tend to go through your life, and those are the friends that you're closest to because you spent 4 years with them. But folks, graduate school is kind of the last opportunity that you have to add to that friendship portal, because the rest of the friends that you will make in your life are going to be the parents of the kids that your kid plays soccer with on Saturday morning, the people that live in your neighborhood, the people that go to your synagogue or your church. Not that any of those people are bad people. They're great people, but you'll have a chance to make some good friends in your graduate program that if you do that, you're going to enrich your journey. They're going to tell you about the great internship that they found that they're not interested in, but that might be really perfect for you. They're going to be working for companies you might want to be employed at in the future. And there's going to be this great benefit. 5 years after, you're going to call up Tammy and you say, "Hey, Tammy, remember that horrible strategic management class we were in? Oh my gosh, do you remember we did X, Y, and Z?" And then say, "Hey, Tammy, I saw from LinkedIn, you're working at Google. Hey, you know what? I'm getting ready to apply for a position in Google. Anybody you can help introduce me to?" Those kinds of connections, those kinds of relationships, you can't pay money to have. So if you're going to come and you're going to be enrolled as a full-time student, then by George, you better be in student organizations and looking for student leadership and volunteering your time, engaging with faculty, conducting some independent research, applying for TA and RA positions. If you are a part-time student, you by George better know the people that you're going to classes with. You better engage in something other than being a drive-by student. That's a student that drives by, parks their car, runs in, opens up their really loud potato chip bag, eats their food while they're watching their 7 o'clock class, and then they run home and all they do is turn in their exams and their projects. You will be so glad as a fully employed student that you made the extra effort. Yes, you're going to be more tired than a full-time student, more stressed than a full-time student. You are going to be pulled 100 different directions. It's going to be 2 or 3 years of your life, depending upon whether it's an MS or an MBA. But when it's all said and done, you're going to look back and say, wow, I didn't leave anything on the sideline. When my kids were growing up, they were all athletes. And I used to tell them when they were getting ready to go into a soccer game or a baseball game or whatever, don't leave anything in the dugout. Don't leave anything on the sideline. When you go out on the field, you give it everything so that when you come off, you don't say, shoulda, woulda, coulda. You don't want to graduate from a graduate degree and say, shoulda, woulda, coulda. You want to be able to say, yeah, I'm tired. I have a really good GPA. It may not be a 4.0, but this is a good GPA. Because by the way, you guys, I need to mention this. Other than McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group, and occasionally Deloitte, employers are not going to ask you about your GPA. They aren't going to make a distinction between somebody with a 4.0 versus somebody with a 3.72. So don't put so much emphasis on the GPA and forget about the other enriching things that are going to add value to who you are and who you become. Wow, whoever asked this question is probably sitting out there going, Oh my gosh, that was a really long answer, and it was, but I am really passionate about that question and the answer to it. So, Norma,
I think that was a great answer. And
so
that's
I
something
hope
that
that I fit the bill in terms of that very long answer. And
for
if you
sure.
think that I'm not passionate about it, I don't know what to say.
Perfect. Well, we have some more questions that have been submitted.
Sure.
One of them is I am graduating this semester with an MS in Innovation and Entrepreneurship, but would like to take some classes in marketing. Do I need to apply for another degree program, or can I register as a non degree seeking student or a certificate?
So, wow, that's a thorough question as well. You can do any of those. Um, I feel that if, I mean, this is just my opinion, and I'm curious what you think, Angela, but to me, if you know at this point that you probably, because of maybe your startup idea or your entrepreneurial idea or your entrepreneurial idea that you might implement inside of a company or corporation, if you feel like, oh my gosh, some marketing analytics classes or some product management classes or some marketing research classes are going to really help me, I encourage you to do that. I think that if you're going to take as many as 4 or even 3, you might as well apply for the degree, because
Yeah.
there's no reason, because you won't have to take that many classes that you would already have a degree. So why not just get the degree? But you could do the certificate and you could do non-degree. But
Yeah,
I think you should do the degree. Get a
I
double
agree.
whammy.
Yeah.
What do you think, Angela?
It is true. It depends on how many classes and then exactly which certificate you're going for. Because if you know
Right.
you want marketing, we don't have a marketing
Marketing
certificate.
certificate. Right.
So if you do non-degree, you can only do 2 classes. But if you do the degree, you can do up to the 19, at least 19 credit hours that are needed for the marketing. And then we'll do a degree audit before you start so you can see exactly what you need. But if you really are passionate about getting these marketing classes, a degree probably would be better.
And you get to spend more time with us. I mean,
Yeah,
how can you go wrong?
it's true. And the marketing department is, I mean, they're very active with their students. So there's lots of things that you'll be able to do with them to really get into the marketing field. Professor Exo, he's always out
He
there with the
is
students
fabulous.
all the time.
Fabulous.
So, just look at your choices. Let us know what you think. Talk to the marketing department as well to see what you plan to do with your career. They can at least guide you to see what classes will be best for you too.
Perfect. So Norma, do we
We've
have
got
any great
another.
other questions?
We do. And that person said awesome and thank you. So very thorough answers to both of those questions. Um, this person joined the program in spring of 2021, and they will have finished 18 credit hours by summer of 2021. Are they eligible for an internship for fall 2021? I am assuming that they might be asking this because they're an international student, which is kind of a more common question we get from our international students. And I know the program that they are in matters. So that is the next question.
So that is a great question. Now, my hope is they didn't take 18 hours in spring, that they took 10 in the spring and they're planning to take 9 in the summer. So that is my guess. That's a guess on my part. But because if they would have needed to, if they had wanted to take 18 credit hours in a single semester, I would have known about it. And I don't recall approving anybody to take 18 credit hours in the spring. But let's assume that they took 10 in the spring and they're taking 9 in the summer. So if you are in one of those 5 degree programs where the internship is required, and help me, Angela, it's analytics, it's ITM, it's management science, it's marketing, and it's supply chain. If you are in one of those 5 programs where the internship is required, then when you have completed 18 credit hours, and in your case, it's probably 19 credit hours, unless for some reason you might have been waived from MAS 6102, then yes, you would be able to take an internship in the fall. If you are not in one of those 5 degree programs, then you would need 2 long semesters, which means you wouldn't be eligible until spring of 2022. Hey, I didn't take a long time to answer that question.
Perfect. Right now, those are all the questions that we have submitted.
Well, terrific. Thank you. I think when we get to this time of year, the weather changes, and I think it's especially, I don't know, um, it's especially prominent in our minds this year because we've spent the last, 14 months in a global pandemic. And now that everybody is getting inoculated, and now that we see those numbers going down, and spring has come and there's flowers blooming, and everybody wants to get back to living life more like it was prior to COVID-19. So I think that there's a real eagerness to do that. And at the same time is the eagerness to move forward. I think there's also on the part of our students, whom, by the way, you guys, I think it is amazing and it is remarkable that despite the pandemic, you just plowed forward in changing your lives and being committed to getting a graduate education at a time when it was, there were so many things you didn't know what to expect. So many things were changed. I think that says a lot about character, that you were willing to say, I'm going to use this time and I'm not going to wait until things are better. That takes a lot of gumption and guts. So I'm proud of that. But I also think that people are, pretty fatigued and pretty exhausted by living in this environment. For the last 14 or 15 months, I feel like my best friend is the little blue dot on the camera. I spend more time talking than the little blue dot on the camera than I do to actual humans with eyes. And so I think it's going to be a little bit of a transition for all of us to get back to life as, pre-COVID. Even when I am around people, there's this funny waltz that's going on. Somebody takes one step forward, you take one step backward, and then you go this way and you go that way. And it's like a waltzing is going on. And I think that we aren't done with the pandemic. I think, we'll probably, we're going to be back face to face in the fall for sure. But I would not be at all surprised if we're still going to have masks, and we're still going to try and keep some appropriate distance from each other, even if it's like 2 feet. But I do think that all of our students, whether you're international, whether you're local, whether you're a continuing student, a graduating student, or a prospective student who might be listening to us today, I think that all of us need to be kind to ourselves and need to step out and let our mind and our bodies be rejuvenated, because I know we're all extremely fatigued by living in this virtual world for the last 14 or 15 months. And I think we don't have a tendency to do that very well. Graduate students are kind of, you're just plowing forward 90 miles an hour because you're all young and you can do it. But I think that if you don't step back and make sure that you allocate some time to catch your breath, then you're going to get into the fall and really be exhausted. So, things are still going to be there if you step away at the end of the semester for 10 days and, take a car ride, visit some of the great places in the state of Texas, spend time with friends who have also been inoculated. And I do want to mention that real quickly. Our students can get inoculated. You just have to sign up on the UT Southwestern website, and you can get inoculated right here on campus at the Davidson Gundy Alumni Center. Our incoming prospective students will also be able to do that as well when they arrive, if they aren't able to get that inoculation in their home country. So I don't want to be like the inoculation preacher, but I am the graduate dean, so I can be a little bit the inoculation preacher. Go get the shot, because I think the sooner that we can get more people inoculated, the sooner that we can protect the masses. And I wish I could wear like a button that says I got jabbed twice. I'm being a little English because the English say they get jabbed, but I got my jabbing twice, and I hope you guys do too as well. So those are things to think about. I think also for students, there is a brand new catalog that will come out. It'll probably be middle of June, Angela, is that correct?
Usually, yes.
Catalog will go live. If there's one thing that you do this summer, I encourage all of you to go in and look at the catalog and see how it might have changed and whether or not you have any desire to move forward in the catalog. But remember, you can never go backwards in the catalog. So if
Yeah.
you came in fall of 20, you can't go back to fall of 19. You can go forward to fall of 21, but you can't ever go backwards. So really think about that and talk to somebody before you go about the business of doing that. I guess the last thing that I'll mention is, man, if you haven't watched the Owlies, the link is out there. We had a ton of fun with the Owlies last week. For those students who don't know what that is our annual tradition, Outstanding Worthy Leaders Involved Exceptionally award ceremony. It played last Wednesday at 4 o'clock. You can see it out on our Jindal School YouTube channel. Whole lot of fun. Our 2020 Owlies has, I don't know, 42,000 people that have watched it. I don't know, Norma, do we know how many people have watched this year's? It's got to be close to 500 at this point.
So I actually looked this morning and it was at 591 views. And so that's just, not
Ooh.
too far along, and we're doing pretty well. I'm sure that'll
So
climb.
if you are an incoming student or a prospective student and you want to get a sense about what the Jindal School is like, you might go out and watch either of those videos that are on the YouTube channel. So I know we've been chatting at you for about 31 minutes. I want to check with Norma and see if there are any other additional questions, or pop to Angela and see if there's any other concluding registration issues we need to be concerned about.
So no other additional questions. You were correct in your assumption of that internship question. Almost correct. The person took 13 hours in spring and is planning to take 6 in summer. So they'll have that 19 at the end of summer.
Well, good for them. Good for them to take on 13 hours in the spring. So they did 4 classes plus 1 credit hour of MAS 102. Yay! Well, good. Well, Angela, what other things should they be mindful of? I do want to make one comment about registration for incoming students, because right now our incoming students have holds on their accounts.
Yes.
And as soon as we can give you the information about when you will register, we will. It is still too early for an incoming student to register, but we will be sending out information via email when those opportunities for you guys to register come up. So I know you guys are eager and ready to jump ahead and get your classes set for fall, and we're eager for you to do that as well. But as soon as we know, we will let you know. All right. Anything else? I guess, what do we say? Going, gone, Angela. Any final comments from you?
Just be mindful of the academic calendar. I know a lot is going on right now, but those dates are there for a reason. And once those dates pass, we cannot change anything. So just be mindful of those important dates. If you don't know where the academic calendar is now, it is on the main webpage for UT Dallas, under the drop-down menu, I believe, Norma. I think it's there. They changed it now. It's under resources.
So it's under resources. If you click on resources, it's like the 3rd or 4th one down, but you'll be able to find it there.
So just write those important dates down: first day of class, last day of registration, last day of late registration, because those dates are usually set in stone. I don't know anything anymore, but usually they are set in stone. They're set by the university. So once that is done, it is done, and we can't overturn that. So that's my main thing.
Well, you know, when we return back to campus, well, of course, you guys can see I'm in my office. See, I'm in my office. Isn't this exciting? I'm in my office. But Norma is in her office, but she has this beautiful Colorado background that makes me want to run out and greet a bear or a moose or something. And I guess, Angela, you must be in Chicago or London. I'm not sure where you are.
No, this is UTD. This is my office. This is what we look like on this side of the building.
But we are all in our offices, but only I have the real background. I do hope that we will make it an opportunity to get out of our offices. We do believe that we'll be back fully in the building in the summer, so we hope you'll come by and visit with us. And we want all of you to just be safe. We want you to stay well. Monica, the mama bear, wants you to get inoculated. And be kind to yourself. And if there's anything that your faculty can do, the staff can do, or I can do, you can always email jindal@utdallas.edu. That's a general mailbox. Norma's checking that mailbox all the time. You can also send any questions to the JSOM question desk. That's another great resource for students. So keep that in mind. But in the meantime, we hope to see you soon. We want to see you soon. And we thank you for taking time to join us today. So we'll see you. This is our last grad dean chat for this year, but we will be back in the fall on a monthly basis, and we hope you'll come back and join us then. You too, Angela.
I will. I'll be here all summer.
All right. Thanks, Angela. Thanks, Norma.
Thank you. Bye, guys.